In 2019, Jean and I had over $60,000 in consumer debt, no savings, no investments, but a dream to retire early. Last year in 2024, we made that dream a reality. We quit our jobs, we sold everything we own, and we started our life of full-time travel and adventure. Today, we want to share with you in the first 7 months of 2025 exactly how much we've spent on that life of full-time travel and adventure in early retirement.
Here's what we have done so far. At the beginning of the year, we flew from Fortaleza, Brazil to Buenos Aires, Argentina. That's where we wanted to start our year. In Buenos Aires, we stayed for a while and we then took a flight from Buenos Aires going to Mendoza. Why? Well, Mendoza, as you guys know, is a land full of wine that we wanted to try. We stayed in Mendoza for a while and then we flew from Mendoza to Cordoba. And from Cordoba, we took another flight going back to Buenos Aires. By the time that we got to Buenos Aires, it was time to explore another country. So what we have done, we then took a ferry from Buenos Aires to Colonia del Sacramento, which is a town in Uruguay. From Colonia del Sacramento, after staying a few nights, we then took a bus going to Montevideo, the capital of Uruguay. We stayed in Montevideo for a few weeks. Then it was time to come back to Buenos Aires because Buenos Aires was our starting point going on a flight all the way to Mexico with a stopover in Brazil. After Mexico, we then flew back to Canada. We stayed for a while, and that's where we basically stopped or ended our first 7 months of full-time travel.
Yeah, but exactly how much did we spend to do all of these great things and live along the way? So we're going to do our categories in ascending order from least to most. So stick around to see what we spent the most money on at the very end. First category we have is our cell phone. Staying connected with family and friends is really important to us. We each have a cell phone plan with Tello, and we also use iRalo for our data. And for the 7 months so far, year to date, we spent $229.
Yeah, the next one is going to be miscellaneous. So everything that we could not find under those categories that we're going to be describing to you, so that's it falls under miscellaneous. And in total, we spent $667. Some of those things, they do include gifts that we have to do to our family, as well as anything that does not fall under the other ones.
Yeah, if we had a category for everything, we'd be here all day.
Yeah.
So the next one is entertainment. We spent a total of $776 on entertainment in the first 7 months. And the vast majority of this amount was a hot air balloon ride that Jean and I took with two really great friends when we were in Mexico over the pyramids of Teotihuacan at dawn. So it was stunning, spectacular, highly recommend. Was expensive, but definitely worth it.
Yeah, let's go to the next category, which is going to be personal care. Personal care, it's basically all the massages, hair, dress, and
nails, all that
nails,
stuff.
all of that stuff. And in total, we spent $910. By the way, all of those numbers that we do have, they are in US dollars.
Yeah. Next category that we spent on was fees and charges. We spent around $1,119 on fees and charges. This included 2 passport renewals while we were back in Canada. The vast majority of it is annual fees that we spend on our credit cards. We have numerous credit cards that we use for different things as we travel, collecting points and miles as we go to help offset the travel category that's coming up later.
Yeah, the next category is going to be clothing and personal hygiene. By the way, clothing and personal hygiene, by the time that we got back in Canada again at like mid-May, so it was time to change our clothes. If you have seen our previous videos, most of the stuff that you're wearing, it's usually the same. And by the way, it's going to be the same for this year with
the next year.
Green shirt.
Yeah.
But in total, let me see how much we spent, $1,296.
The next category is health insurance. Health insurance is probably one of the more important categories. It's important to have that no matter where you're traveling. So we use Safety Wing when we travel using their Nomad insurance plan, and we spent $1,622 for the 7 months that we've been traveling so far.
Yeah. Before going through the next category, it's gonna be groceries. By the way, if you wanted to download those things, our members and our community members, we do have all of this breakdown in more details. You can go and take a look if you wanna join us. But groceries, it's basically by the time that we came back to Canada, as well as throughout those 7 months, we spent in total $2,042.
Right. And we spent the most of this in Canada simply because for the vast majority of our travel time after we left Argentina, we were in hotels. There was no kitchen to cook in. So when we were in Argentina, we had groceries. And then in Canada, that's what we contributed to the household was groceries. So the next one is medical. We spent $2,093 on medical in the first 7 months of the year, but this included several blood tests that we did. We were in Brazil and we had a bunch of medical testing done, trying to get a baseline of where we are at this point in our lives. We saw an endocrinologist. We both went and saw the dentist, all this kind of thing. So medical was a little bit higher, but it gave us a baseline as to where our health is now and where we want to start improving to stay healthy longer.
Yeah, in total, we spent $2,093. And by the way, from all of these categories that I had spoken to you so far, it does represent around 30% of what we have spent. Now, here comes the best part with the top 3 categories that we spent not this year, I mean, it's up to this year. The first one, it's going to be travel and transportation. When we mean travel and transportation, it does mean the flights that you have to pay, all, the ferries, Ubers, and everything in between, buses and everything else. In total, we spent $3,725. Out of these $3,725, we actually had 9 flights. And out of these 3,000, by the way, $1,000 was for an upgrade that we have in our flight from Brazil going all the way to Mexico because we wanted to have a little bit of more comfort. So we decided to upgrade for a business flight.
Yeah, that flight was 9 hours. So I think $500 each to upgrade from economy to business was well worth the expense in our minds. So the next category, nobody should be surprised that this is in the top 3, but it is eating out. Jayon and I find that eating out is a form of entertainment for us. It's a way for us to get to know a city and a culture and just enjoy ourselves. So we spent $6,713 on eating out over the course of the first 7 months of the year. 2 months we were in Canada. Canada is a very expensive country to eat out. We took family and friends out to eat as a treat once in a while. So it did tend to add up a little bit when we were in Canada.
Yeah, not only that, but also we were surprised by the prices in Argentina. From all the videos that you might have seen on YouTube a few years back, in 2025, when we were in Argentina, the prices were quite high.
Yeah, it was expensive, but good. Yeah.
It is what it is. So let's go to the top category. I'm going to leave that to you. Go for it.
Top category was accommodation. We spent $6,807 on accommodation for the first 7 months of the year, which really isn't that bad. It's under $1,000 a month for accommodation. However, when you think about it, we were in Canada for 2 of those months and we didn't have any accommodation costs because we were staying with family. So how in the world did we spend $6,800 on accommodation? Well, 3,000 of that is points that we have purchased for hotels, both IHG and Wyndham, for future stays that are coming up, moving forward into the next half of the year. In fact, all of the hotel stays that we stayed in the first 7 months were paid for with points and miles points that we had purchased in December of 2024.
Yeah.
So those are our categories for the first 7 months. Those are our totals, our real numbers. How much did we spend grand total for 7 months of full-time travel?
The exact amount, $27,999.
$1 short of $28,000.
Yeah. On average, this is around even $4,000 per month, rounding this number. So that's how much we have spent so far.
So that's our grand total for 7 months of full-time travel. Let us know in the comments down below. What are some of your biggest categories? Do you have categories that we haven't mentioned that you spend on as well? As many of you know, our goal is to travel full-time on a budget of $42,000 a year. So if we take away that $28,000 that we've already spent, it leaves us with just around $14,000 for the next 5 months, or right around $2,800 a month. Do you think we can do it? Stick around and find out.